This is The Alternative Edge, home of KBVU podcasts.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Joshua Tigas, and thank you for listening to The Positive Point, a podcast where I try to shed some light into your world. On this week's episode, I brought someone in to talk about how planning things out isn't always the best thing to do. Jackie has overcome everything that COVID has thrown her way. I can imagine graduating college and trying to get a job during the middle of a pandemic is no easy task. But she has prevailed. A lot of times, there's a lot of focus on being organized and having your days planned out. I know I do that all the time, but if there's one thing that Jackie and this pandemic can teach us, it's how important it is to be flexible and able to adapt. I hope you connect with this episode in one way or another because I believe this is something we all need to get better at. It's how you change and adapt to fit the situation that determines the outcome. So, without further ado, allow yourself to escape from your life for a little while and enjoy this episode with Jackie. I can't believe we're on episode 8 already, but here we are. And Jackie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Yeah, so Jackie and I, we've been friends over the past couple of years, but we really haven't been as close as maybe some of my other guests have been because when I was an incoming freshman, she was an outgoing senior, and she always helped with marching band because of her passion for music and everything. And it was always really cool to see that passion shine through you.
Yeah, music has always been like my passion. It's always been my safe space and my escape for things. So I found a love of music, and then I went off to college and became a music education major, and now I am teaching music. So it stays with me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, how you just started your career kind of in the midst of a pandemic and with getting a job and everything. And we're really talking about how you have to be flexible, especially with everything nowadays.
Oh, for sure. I think when this whole thing all started, it was just kind of panic of not knowing what's to come. I'm very much a planner. I like to know about things, and just the unknown it kind of threw me off a little. Graduation was rough because I'd been working 4 years to walk across that stage and get my diploma, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do that. It was all virtual, so we didn't actually have a normal ceremony or anything. Finding a job was a little difficult because there weren't as many openings as there normally would have been, just because of uncertainty and everything. But thankfully I got one. It's not what I was originally looking for, because I was looking for a band, but I got a job teaching general music. It's TK through 4, and I absolutely love my kids, and I love teaching them, and I'm happy. It's a good spot.
Yeah, you kind of talked about how graduation wasn't what you were expecting, and I know exactly where you're coming from with that, but how it was kind of tough to get a job also, how there wasn't as many openings as there typically would have been, and how you don't necessarily have the job you were looking for, but you've still found to love what you're doing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I said, my kids are great. I absolutely love them. My coworkers have been really great as well. Because I'm a first year teacher, they've been and it's not necessarily just the music department, although I'm very close with them. But other teachers throughout the school, stop in my room, they check in and see how I'm doing. If I need anything, they're always willing to help. And it's just been so great being surrounded by people that are so supportive.
Yeah, you kind of brought up another really cool thing that this pandemic has brought out in people, how we reach out to others and check up on people, especially when they're going through things for the first time, like you with your job, checking up on you, making sure things are going well. So that's something I've really seen that's really been amazing to observe, that this pandemic has kind of brought forth or brought into the light with people.
And it's not necessarily others reaching out to me. I've been reaching out to others as well, not necessarily checking in on them like they have been for me, but asking for help, which I think is very important to do. I think sometimes we think that we can just handle things on our own, but it's very important to ask for help, especially if I'm not sure of something, I want to do it correctly or like get someone else's point of view before like I just go and like mess everything up or something. Not like I would, but like for like our Christmas program that we're trying to plan and everything, I have a mentor. And so like I've been going to her and she's been very gracious and have been helping me so much through it.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up again with how being able to reach out to people when you need help. It's okay to reach out and people often welcome it because they're willing to give you that help and offer their assistance. So that's another really good thing that people should recognize is being able to reach out and recognize when you need help and just don't be afraid to ask for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I'm curious, are you more of a person that kind of goes with the flow, or are you like more analytical, like you like to have things planned out?
Oh, for sure. I love to have things planned out. I like to know what I'm doing. I like to know like what time everything is. Like I have a planner that I use all the time, like writing things down constantly. I have lists that I make of stuff I have to do, crossing things off as I go. So just like not knowing things or like things at the last second just kind of throw me off a little.
Yeah, I am exactly the same way. I love to have things planned out. I know in my head, I plan out like my week in advance and everything, and all my days. I have things that I want to get accomplished, and when I don't accomplish them, I beat myself up because of it. And then, like you mentioned, when something gets thrown at us at the last second, it kind of throws me all off track and everything. But especially during this pandemic, I've recognized how sometimes that's not the best thing to have everything planned out because sometimes, especially now during the pandemic, things are going to be thrown at you that's going to throw everything off track.
For sure. I know a good thing, like for me, that has been like a struggle because of like social distancing and everything. And like we have to wear masks. So, like, something for me that I was like planning on doing is recorders with my fourth graders. And we can't really do that because of like the airflow and everything. So, I'm trying to find an alternative, hopefully, like, we can do that in the spring. But again, I just like it threw everything off. And so now I have to like reanalyze the situation and like reconfigure everything.
Yeah, that was something I was really interested in and kind of eager to talk to you about too, was with especially you being a teacher, how has this year kind of been and how have things been thrown off from what you would have originally anticipated?
So my kids are currently 6 feet apart, of course, and they wear masks. So it's kind of hard to like hear them when they sing just because like the masks muffle the sound and everything. It's harder to do some activities because they can't touch each other. So like we can't do like partner activities or things like that. And again, like with recorders, like we can't, it could have been an option, but we would have had to use like the bags that they put over instruments for band and stuff, and those would have been very costly and not within our budget. So finding an alternative thing is a little struggle because you have to make sure that every student has their own instrument because again you can't share things, and I have to clean things between classes, which is also a struggle. So just like a lot of like extra little things that you don't normally think of except for like during COVID. It's you have to make sure that you hit everything, and so it's just a lot more stuff.
Yeah, this year has definitely brought its set of challenges to everyone, and each person goes through things differently, and each person's experiencing a different set of challenges with COVID. But it's important to be able to take that step back and kind of just go with the flow in situations. I'm sure that's something you've learned with teaching now, how maybe even day to day, some plans might change because of new guidelines that are put out that you have to follow.
Oh, for sure. We started off, this is like a big thing that has been happening is schedule changes. So we started off with like a set schedule, and our kids were eating in the classrooms. Well, it was causing issues with like ants and stuff because little kids, they have crumbs and everything all over the floor. So they started eating in the lunchroom. Well, then we had to like shift the lunch schedule so that it gave them enough time to eat and like get everything cleaned up between lunches. And so like that shifted the whole special schedule. So like their art and PE and music time. So that all got mixed around, and it was it was a couple weeks where it was like, what's happening? Like, I don't know what's happening. They're kind of come when they come, I guess. And if I don't have them, like, I guess that's okay, kind of thing. And I think we finally have a schedule set for the time being, which I love. I absolutely love it because, again, I'm a schedule kind of person, but just that time of not knowing what's happening and so many things going on was just a little rough.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because that's kind of my version of torture is when things are just kind of thrown at me and said, here, throw this into your schedule. Whoa, hold up. I have this whole day planned out. Now I have to adapt to this. But that's something that I've recognized, and I know I've said, especially during this pandemic, is being able to adapt to those situations and be flexible, kind of just go with the flow because in some situations that's the best option that you have.
I know, like for me, like I've tried to trying to be go with the flow, and it's just throwing me off. So like it normally like results in me staying later at school, which isn't always the most fun thing ever, is just staying late at school. But if it means I get things done, like I get things done, and then I'm ready for the next day. So
Yeah, but you've mentioned how this school year in particular has been really a big transition for you, especially with the first year of teaching. And I'm sure that has brought a great deal of stress along with it. So, what's kind of your go to ways of when things become too much and when you really can't have things planned out? What's your go to way to kind of take that step back?
I think for me, like I'm very much a person that likes to get things done, and like I would stay at school all night if I could. So just like the teachers, especially like the music department, because they know me so well and they know I like to stay late. They check in on me, or like they'll be like, "Hey, do you want to go out to eat or something?" So like just like being with my coworkers and like around other people and just like taking a step back, like whether it be going out to eat or like sitting and watching like a movie or something with them, like just time with other people that like are more my age, more adults and not necessarily small children, but just like being able to have like that community time with them is really great.
Yeah, I really love that how you brought up those coworkers and maybe some other people, their friends or whatnot, kind of just give them that break that they need because even with being flexible, there's stresses that come with that, with especially with people like us who like to have things planned out. Just kind of sitting back is a whole new level of stress because we can't plan things out. So having that kind of escape route is also something that I think can be really beneficial to people.
I know sometimes I struggle with it too because they're like, oh, like, let's go do something, let's go out to eat. And I'm like, well, I have all of this other stuff to do. Like, I don't know if I can. And they kind of talk me into it or peer pressure me sometimes just because they know I need it. But yeah, I mean, sometimes like I'll be out eating with them or something, but like in my mind I'll be thinking of everything I have to do, and like they have to distract me from it just because like I'm always thinking about things, always thinking about what I have to do and what's not done and what I have to get done. And yeah, it's always nice to just have them like distract me for a little bit.
Yeah. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about, and I know that's a big part of your life, is your faith and how you kind of lean back on that in times when things become too much, even I assume probably during this pandemic and stuff. So it's really important for people to kind of take that step back, like we've been talking about, but also turn their life over to God and just let the plan fall out the way He knows it's going to.
Oh, for sure. When quarantine started happening, I was scrolling through TikTok one day and I found a Christian TikToker who was starting like Bible studies. And so people around the world gathered a couple times a week for these Bible studies. And there's like some different ones, but they gather for these Bible studies and there's worship and praise and just like fellowship and stuff like that along with the Bible study. So that's really nice. I've made some really good friends through this Bible study. One thing that also keeps me going is I have a Christian playlist on my Spotify. So at school, I mean, because I'm in a Catholic school, it's great music, it's safe for the kids to listen to, like it's appropriate. And so like I just blast my music usually all day, and people always walk by and they're like, I always hear your music, and I'm like, yeah, it keeps me in a good mood, it keeps me going. And then of course we have mass every week. So that's always a good place to go to. So I go to church about 2 times a week, on Sundays and then in school. So that's always a good thing too.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned to do is when things become too much, just have trust in the greater plan, in God's plan for your life, and put it over into His hands because we can have dreams for where we want to go in life, but ultimately He has a plan and He knows where you're going to end up.
Oh, for sure.
So to kind of circle back around to this flexibility topic, I know we both talked about how we're very analytical and have had to adapt our ways these past couple months, and it's been a struggle for me, I know, but it's something that I'm slowly learning, and that's with anything in life. You can't really just jump into it. It has to be a slow process and slowly work your way because stepping stones is how we get to the big picture.
And I think faith comes into that a lot too, like you said, just giving it up. So like the unknown is just, like here I am, God, like just give it up to him and like it will work itself out, whether or not like you see it now, it will become more clear in the future too.
Yeah, and this kind of all goes back to previous episodes and topics that I've talked about how taking time to either meditate or step back and just get the perspective you need on those situations because sometimes going with the flow offers you just that. It allows you to take that step back instead of living in the future, always planning ahead. It allows you to live in the present moment and focus on what's happening right now.
For sure.
And one thing that being flexible does is just that. It allows us to live in that present moment and really focus on what matters, which is what's happening right now. Because another thing I've recognized is when I plan things out, I'm always like living in the future and focusing on what's coming. And I'm not really devoting my best effort to what I'm doing right now and things that need to get done right away.
I think one thing that I've noticed too is to just like enjoy the moment that you're in. When this all happened, I moved back home. So I was spending pretty much every day with my family after not seeing them for like weeks on end. So just like enjoying my time with my family. I'd spent so much time with my friends like while at school that, family is important too. And just being in the moment with them and now being in the moment with my coworkers when I need a break. So just enjoying that time because it goes fast. It really does.
Yeah, with living in the future, you do miss out on a lot that's happening right now. Like you mentioned, those memories with either family or coworkers or friends and stuff. There's a lot happening in our lives right this second, and there's memories that are waiting to be made. And sometimes when we don't take that chance to step back and kind of live in the moment and go with the flow, we miss out on most of those. Yeah, so Jackie, you have been a big inspiration to me, especially over these past couple months, how you've learn to adapt to the situation and kind of be more flexible because my hat really goes off to all the teachers these days because of what they've had to endure these past couple months with all the unknowns and constant schedule changes. So my hat goes off to you, and I'm really blown away with how you're able to still teach children about music during this extremely tough time.
For sure. It's definitely not easy. And I mean, that's just from a music side, there's so many other subjects that teachers are trying to teach online that students may not be getting. Like, I also have students online, a couple of them at least. And so like for those being completely online, I can't imagine like trying to explain something to a whole class. And so props to them. Like I get it. Like it's difficult and oh yeah.
Yeah, but I know you've had to learn a bunch of new things these past couple weeks with being flexible and those constant schedule changes, but it does offer a really amazing learning opportunity because it allows us to take that step back and live in that present moment like we just got done talking about. So to kind of wrap this around into the present person with how people can use this today, I think it is just all that to live in the present moment. This kind of goes back to a quote that I brought up a couple episodes ago, where depression comes when we dwell on the past, anxiety comes when we stress about the future, but peace comes from when we take things one step at a time and live in the present moment.
This quote is from Albert H. Schuler. It's always look at what you have left, never at what you have lost. So I just think, like we plan the future all the time and time goes by, so then we've already lost that. But by living in the future, like we look at what we have left, like I still have my family and my friends and my coworkers and just enjoying that time with them. Like that's what I have, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I love that quote, and I love how you kind of brought that in with the present person, your favorite quote there, because that does fit in. It kind of shows how living in the future can also be a good thing. I know I've kind of been bashing it down, how living in the future is bad and everything, when really it's hurtful to a certain extent because we miss out on some things in the current moment, but it also allows us to like give our life that little direction that we need. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed talking to you. And like I said, my hat goes off to you for being able to adapt and overcome all the situations that COVID has thrown your way, with graduating to trying to find a job to teaching during a pandemic. I know it's no easy task. So keep up
For
the
sure.
good work, and thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great seeing you again.
That conversation really opened me up to how it's okay to not have everything planned out. Sometimes, when we go with the flow, the most beautiful things happen in our lives. So that has to be the positive point of the podcast for this episode. To be flexible. Some of us get caught up in the mindset that we have to have everything planned out exactly how something's going to happen, or exactly how you're going to go about your day. I know I'm one of the people guilty of this. But when we get in this mindset, we miss out on so many opportunities. The chance to make memories with friends, the chance to watch your children grow up in front of your eyes, the chance to grow as a person. Don't get me wrong, having things planned out is generally a good thing, but I have found that it leads to me constantly being stressed about what's coming, and when something happens that throws my plan off course, I get lost. Being flexible doesn't mean that you strictly have to live in the moment. It means that you're able to adapt to whatever is thrown your way. Sometimes the most cherished memories in our lives comes from when we do things in the spur of the moment, or when we overcome something that was originally unforeseen. Simply being flexible allows us to take the step back from worrying about the future and focus on the present moment. And for some reason, all of the other stresses begin to melt away. Take one step at a time and focus on doing your best in the current moment. It's when we get too far ahead of ourselves that we begin to lose sight on what matters, the present moment. You can have your life planned out to the exact steps, and then all of a sudden, God could throw a wrench in your plan. We can have a dream for where we want our lives to go, but God has a plan for where your life is going to end up. When you begin to lose sight of your dreams, go back to God and lean on Him to give you the guidance, and He will shed light on the next step of your path. Our lives can be planned out as much as we want them to. By learning to be flexible, we grow as a person and are able to put trust in the greater plan. This week I challenge you to live in the present moment. Instead of completely planning out your week, go with the flow and focus on adapting to the situation. Make an effort to become flexible. Adapt to whatever situation is thrown your way. Sometimes life throws us enormous obstacles, but it's your ability to adapt and be flexible in these situations that we're able to show the world how strong we truly are. Let your strength shine and face those obstacles with confidence. You've got this. Now go do it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And as always, feel free to DM me on Twitter at thepositivepoi2. That's the positive POI 2. Or Instagram at thepositivepoint_podcast. Or send an email to thepositivepointpodcast@gmail.com to share a random act of kindness or uplifting deed that you did for someone else, or they did for you. Or maybe it's something you saw someone else do for another person. Reach out to me and share the story. Who knows? Maybe you will be the next positive point of the podcast. Until next time, this is Joshua Tigas. And remember, keep it positive.